How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Pick Swap podcast. It's Tuesday, March 29th, middle of the day, a little afternoon talk. Sixers Bucks tonight. While it's not on national television, still a very big game. So me and Sean are going to be talking about that. Suns, recap of the Suns Clippers this weekend. Talk about the MVP. Talk about a little bit about James Harden and if there's any concern there. JJ Redick, randomly popping up in the Sixers facility. And then obviously we'll get down to the nitty gritty of tonight and how this is going to shake up with the East. So Sean, how you doing, brother?
Not too bad. Definitely some missed opportunities by the NBA. The Suns and Sixers wasn't national either. Bucks and Sixers not national game tonight. So I think everybody's done with watching the Lakers on the prime time or the Knicks on the prime time. And I don't know, give the Sixers a little more respect. Been a lot of that going around lately, I feel like. So, but overall, not bad.
Yeah, I was. I literally said to one of my roommates yesterday. I was watching the Knicks, and granted it was on NBA TV, but I was like, this team is always on TV. I
Yeah.
see them all the time, and the Knicks just aren't a good enough team for me to want to watch all the time. Also, they play an annoying and boring brand of basketball. Like I don't like what the Knicks do. I am a no Knicks hater, so maybe that's part of it. But like, I just don't like that at all. It's annoying. But Sixers Suns, if we're gonna go back to that game, we'll talk about that. Sixers blew out the Clippers, got out to a big lead, held a big lead, which was nice. First time in maybe ever that they've done that. But the Sixers go into Phoenix and they battle Phoenix down to the wire. They actually held a big lead at one point. So takeaways from that game, man, it was a pretty good one on a Sunday, a little matinee action. It was nice, but I enjoyed that game even though they lost.
Yeah, it was awesome to watch. The Suns are a very legitimately good team. They have high quality players, the superstar studs. We saw Devin Booker getting going early, and just the system they play, the creativity with Chris Paul running the show, creating things, creating mid range, creating looks for others. A lot of just fun stuff to watch. Their switchability on defense, the athleticism. They're a very well built team, very well run system, and I mean the Sixers were and are a little notch below that in some respect, and the Sixers played well overall. Like it wasn't a performance I was super disappointed in. They needed a lot there. Harden's performance was not good enough. 2-11 from the field hurts. Harden's still struggling to find that balance of when to create versus attack and get his own, and just the shots are not falling in the way that we all hope for them to, and that they just need to be for things to be successful. So I think that definitely hurt the Sixers down the stretch. No Matisse Thybulle minutes in the entire fourth quarter, which is insane, especially with how well he played Devin Booker early on. And I get the foul trouble, but it's the fourth quarter to not play him at all. And I believe he ended. Yeah, he ended with 4 fouls. So it's like if you got him, use him, give him a little run. I don't know. He had some disappointing finishes around the rim earlier on some impressive passes from Harden. So offensively, it was not a great Matisse game, but that was an interesting decision for me, I guess.
It's one of those things that again you don't even like. I think during the game I wasn't even really thinking about it. Um, but like I can't remember thinking that there was anyone else that was giving us or giving the Sixers like a better look at that point. And like to me, Matisse Thybulle is going to be a starter. He's in your rotation, like firmly in the rotation. So foul trouble and like a little bit of struggle scoring, which like is naturally Matisse anyway. Like I don't know how you can. I don't know, man. I don't. I'm getting to the point right now where Doc Rivers is everything he does is questionable at a high level. I still can't get over the fact like I know I've talked about this a lot and maybe it's starting to get like I'm kind of beating a dead horse, but like his only time he's ever animated, ever excitable at all is when he's bitching and complaining. It's so bad. It's so bad. Like I've never seen him genuinely like excited about the way the Sixers are playing basketball. It seems like this is all just whatever and he wants to just get his way and he just complains so often. The Suns, let me backtrack here a little bit. The Suns complain and bitch about everything. I mean, it's a Chris Paul led team, so it makes sense.
Devin
But
Booker. Devin
Devin
Booker
Booker
is
was
bad.
bad.
Yeah.
Bad, dude. I was literally like texting in my group chat, like, this is one of the most annoying teams in the NBA. They are annoying as hell. Between, I mean, obviously Chris Paul, Devin Booker, who I never even realized was like that, and then Jay Crowder. These guys literally don't shut up. Like, it's like there was one time where Devin Booker was on the bench and there was Jay Crowder fouled Embiid, which like got all of Embiid. Like it was for sure a foul. Like it was almost an intentional foul at that point. Booker was all the way out at half court
Yeah.
yelling at an official about a play that's literally 100+ feet away from him. Like how can you argue? What are you even saying at that point? Like what I was really like I don't watch enough Suns basketball, I guess, but like now I realize that they are an annoying ass team, and they'd be really annoying to play in a series against.
Yeah, I'll say that was for Devin Booker specifically. I mean, he's always a talker in a little bit. I think the
Yeah,
bench said something early, got him going, and he was lively as far as talking wise after that. That was one of the more times I've seen him bitching and complaining. Jay
yeah.
Crowder, I love Jay Crowder, so I'm not even. I can't hate on it. But did you see the Instagram picture he posted?
No.
It was after the late game 3 when, when he turned around and was kind of talking to the Sixers bench. He posted a picture from that and tagged Niang and Doc Rivers in it. So the trolling from Jay Crowder is still going on.
Yeah.
Uh, I love Jay Crowder, so I can't hate on it that much. But in general, I agree. It was a annoying Suns win in that regard. But you can't deny that what they do is impressive and that they do have things structured. Best team in the NBA for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. I think there was like, I mean, the first quarter was incredible. Some of the best basketball I've seen all season. The
Yeah.
Sixers did play up to their competition. If you know, Embiid went crazy in the first quarter. Tobias took over in the second quarter, which was, probably the best Tobias stretch all season.
Yeah.
Uh, but like again, it's one of those things. What we've been saying, I think, for a lot of the season, and something you've harped on a lot, is that they don't play full 4 quarters. Like Tobias scores 15 in the first half and gives you 2 in the second. Like they got blown out in the third quarter. They couldn't get, like, it just doesn't make sense to me. You have this such a great game and then you go into halftime. And to me, again, when you're thinking about this and you think about the way that basketball goes, if you're playing really well, you have a run going, you have the momentum going into halftime, and then you come out and you get your ass beat in the third quarter. To me, that's being outcoached. That's Monty Williams going into his locker room, making adjustments, Doc Rivers going into his locker room and not. Because how can you come out and play a completely different game than you were 20 minutes beforehand? It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Danny Green get the most extended run he's gotten in quite some time since like the beginning of the season. He played 29 minutes, ended with 6 points. He had 8 rebounds, which is pretty crazy for Danny Green. But 2 of 7 shooting, all came from beyond the arc. There's the one play that everybody remembers where he missed the first corner 3, got his own rebound, dribbled it right across, tried the other one, knocked it down, which is a pretty all-time Danny Green play in terms of like the no, 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 yes, and it goes in. So there was like I guess good moments from Danny Green. Niang's gone a little quiet lately as far as his
Yeah.
bench production, and once again, like this is it's tough that that's our only kind of go-to impact bench player. Like there's not really a lot other. Shake, he played 14 minutes again. He had 3 points, 4 assists, decent Shake minutes. DeAndre Jordan, same issues there. Everything going on. I mean, there's not like I agree. It kind of feels like the same thing as far as what we're complaining about, what we're nitpicking. There is still stuff to nitpick, and at the bottom line, I think for me is James Harden's probably the biggest issue in this. There's some real concerns with me at this point, just in terms of like the lack of pop coming off with his like dribble moves, creating separation, and just the non-existent mid-range game, the lack of touch around the rim, and just when we talk about like complaining, like there were plays where Harden's not even getting back, where he's just complaining about the official lost 6 or 5-on-4, and he's doing just relying on like his sole goal when attacking the basket just seems to be to get fouled rather than like, dude, just make a shot, man. Like try and get one off the backboard and in rather than getting somebody to slap your arm as you chicken winging out. So I'm getting a little I don't want to say concerned, but there's definitely like I don't think this is something whether it's him aging or the hamstring injury to I don't think either way it's fixed by the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. It's kind of a complicated situation. The way I look at it is, I mean, he's not James Harden from 2016, but I think we all knew that.
Yeah.
I think it has to be a fundamental change in the way that he's attacking, um, just looking to score. Like that's why I've been saying that I've kind of waiting for that Embiidless game where Harden does play, and you can kind of just say like, go ahead, go find your rhythm, go get started. And we've seen it in stretches, and we just need to see it. I think he just has to be more aggressive. I think that the Sixers are looking at him to score. Um, where oftentimes I feel like he's looking to pass. And again, he's averaging over 10 assists per game. So like when we're thinking about it, that's something that we can't complain about. That's better than the facilitation that the Sixers have had over the last couple of years. But yeah, it's definitely questionable the way like he's going to the basket. And while I do think there's a lot of times in that Suns game specifically where he got mauled a few times, but
Yeah.
then there's also times where he's, you know, he kind of drives into that defender and then
For
puts his
sure.
arms here and pulls up and tries to get that call, which occasionally he'll get, sometimes he won't. And when he doesn't, it just looks really bad. And then he finds himself, at the baseline as the ball is going the opposite way. So, there's definitely something that bothers me with that. But it's, again, like I don't know if I can keep taking this back to Doc Rivers. I guess I'm going to try every time. I know this is like historically James Harden. It is what he does. It's kind of, part of his brand.
Yeah.
But, like, I would like when I see what, like, Monty Williams does and, these other guys with, like, the Grizzlies and these teams that just, like, don't care and just go hard and, don't care about a whistle, just keep playing. Like, that's the kind of energy I want from this team, and it just, you know, with Embiid, with Harden, and then, now obviously with Doc Rivers as well, it just seems like sometimes they do end up relying on the calls, and then when they don't get it, it becomes like a shit fest where they just kind of, you know, give it all up. But I don't know, man. I'm not concerned. I don't think I'm too concerned about Harden right now. He's gonna find. I hope he finds it. I guess.
Yeah, and some extent of it is being like hot and cold. Like
Yeah.
he just hasn't been shooting the ball particularly well. That just kind of is the ebbs and flows of his game. When looking at obviously he's a different player than Chris Paul, but looking at like a career trajectory as far as what Harden needs to kind of adjust for is like Chris Paul should be the model in terms of like his scoring numbers have gone down, his assist numbers has gone up. He's gotten way more involved in just terms of running the offense, being the guy that like creates, does all that, make sure everything's flowing correctly. I would love for James Harden to step down that path more. And the thing that separates James Harden and makes him such a unique talent and such a superstar, the superstar that he has been and still is his ability to both score the basketball and assist the basketball at a level that really no one ever has been able to do. Like there's never been a guy who can casually get 10 assists and score in the way that he is. And Harden's for sure a better scorer than Chris Paul in general, always has been. But like there just isn't like that. And some of it, again, like this guy has played under 20 games with the Sixers at this point. He's still finding his way to fit into this offense, finding his flow. So it's tough to just be like, make this work perfectly this quickly because it just takes time for it to work out. But just finding like more of a balance and being the guy that's like that comfort in the offense and always has it. Like, look at where Chris Paul does his damage on a basketball court is you see like the way he maneuvers to the mid range, creates like those looks for himself. And like if James Harden can add a mid range like jumper, which I get is completely the opposite of Morey ball and James Harden ball in the past couple of years. Like we've seen with the Rockets during that era of him just completely passing up open mid ranges to get back to the 3-point line and that kind of thing. But like if that can be added to this game and just like I know this is against the analytics of what Morey even probably believes in, but like that's open off a Joel Embiid screen every single possession. And if that's added to like their pick and roll game, which has already been very, very impressive and probably the most encouraging part of this two-man relationship between Embiid and Harden is that is working. But if that you can add like another layer where Harden is like now hammering home mid-range jumpers, because like there's no reason why he can't do it. Like it's a basic basketball shot. This guy can shoot from all over the court. It's like just add this to the repertoire, and I think that would change a lot as well.
Yeah. I mean, the pick and roll obviously has been their best. The best part of this whole edition is giving Joel Embiid a fantastic and high level facilitator. In that teams are pressuring that. Teams are doubling Harden right off the screen. And that kind of neutralizes the offense for a second because they all know what's trying to happen, what the Sixers are trying to do in that situation. Um, I don't know, man. I just need more flow in the offense. Like I know that that's their bread and butter. That's what they want to do. That's the action that they want. But I want that action to be part of the offense, not the offense. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It just seems like a lot of times it's either that's what's happening or Harden is standing still. And I can't that's not going to work. That's not going to work in the playoffs. And it's something I think would when you look back at the first 3 or 4 games that Harden was here for, when they weren't really playing in a set, they were kind of just playing basketball. Like, it
Good.
just looked like everything was flowing, everything was moving, Maxey was getting involved, Harris was kind of, not necessarily playing as well as he did the other night, but, doing his thing, playing defense. If he's giving you 10 points, 12 points, you're okay with that as long as Maxey, Harden, and Embiid are all engaged. But it just seems like right now they're trying to find this weird balance. It's like you got to just not worry about it and just play an emotion style. Like I just don't get where that why that peaked so early and then plateaued, and we haven't seen. We kind of thought this is just the beginning when you're looking back at the Knicks and the Timberwolves game and how well they played in those games and how good they looked and how good the offense looked, and we were like, holy shit, like this is the new norm here. With the pick and roll working, but Harden also working the ball around, Maxey flying around all over the place, and they've had stints and stretches where that's what's happening. You look at the first quarter, you know, against the Suns, and you look at the Clippers game. Like let's not forget how well Harden did play in that Clippers game.
Yeah.
And that's still there. That's why I guess I'm not too concerned right now because that's still there. And it took a game, and the Suns are a great defense. The Suns are a really well coached team. There's a reason that that was what their 60th win. Like they're really really good. I just hope that tonight's going to be a big test. I think with obviously Embiid and Harden, and this is a big matchup, and we'll talk about that later. Do you want to move into the MVP conversation?
Yeah, real quick to wrap it up. Just 1 to 10, you're concerned with James Harden right now.
I'm gonna say a 5.
Okay. I'm probably I'll go 6.8 on my concern
Okay,
is my
that's
rating.
fair.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say 5 just because I do feel like he is a very very smart basketball player, and I'm hoping that will just carry through.
Hmm.
But it's TBD right now.
Yeah.
So the Sixers have 7 games left or 8 games left until the the start of the playoffs, and then they
Uh
will have some rest.
yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, they will. I mean, they still have 2 more back-to-backs, which maybe we get one of those Harden run the show games in one of those.
Yeah.
I don't know. The Sixers are in the like very difficult like tight walk of the team needs more minutes to like play together, develop together, learn how to play, but they also need to rest these guys before playoffs. Like Embiid specifically is the meaning of that. But the Sixers, their whole identity changes when Embiid's not on the court, obviously. So like to give him the night off is pretty much killing that other option of like the chemistry developing because obviously he's the center of everything the Sixers run. So it's not an easy balance to strike. There's not a lot of games left to figure out how to do it. And I mean, to some extent, like this is what makes midseason trades so difficult to like win right away is like it just takes time for everything to click. And I mean, there's not that much time left available.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. They do have some. I mean, I don't want to say like gimmies because there's no such thing as gimmies, especially with this Sixers team. But they do have some lower level teams that they are playing. Through this last stretch of games. I know they see the Pacers again. I know they see the Magic again. So there are some teams that you can go into that, and if Embiid's not playing, it's not the end of the world. You still have a chance, especially if it's a game that Harden is playing in. Um, so, I mean, we can. Do you want to talk about the Bucks now, or you want to do the Bucks preview now, or do you want to go into the MVP stuff right now?
Do a little MVP stuff. So I guess like I'll give you my read on it is there definitely has been some shifting tides in terms of like Jokic has made his comeback in the MVP race as far as nationally is kind of the feeling of it and the I don't know like it's interesting there feels like there's a difference between like the narrative and the national talk than there is in like the actual like when you look at like the betting odds of who's favorites like Embiid is still a decent notch above Jokic, but it's certainly getting closer. And I mean, we saw the last ESPN poll today came out with Jokic receiving the most first place votes by a pretty good margin. I believe he had 67 to Embiid's 29, and Giannis had 9 as well. I mean, I obviously we're a little slanted in this opinion, but like to me, the stretch that Embiid pulled prior to the All-Star break and just being able to carry this Sixers team that was super incomplete as a roster, super lacking talent, had the whole Ben Simmons drama looming over, a complete max contract sitting out, and to just carry them into a team that is still in the running for first place in the East, still like considered a very legitimate title contender. And like to me, he's been the MVP. I think this has been set in stone for a while. I would love for a couple massive performances to end the year to hammer it home, but I don't like that Jokic just sneaking back into it.
Yeah. Before I give you my little take here, because I have a good amount to say about this. We're going to talk quickly about BetUS. I didn't mention them at the beginning, but this is a good time to bring them in, considering the betting odds and everything that's changed. So if you're curious and you want to bet on Joel Embiid to win the MVP, as Sean and I both have, you can go to BetUS, which is the leading sportsbook and casino in the market right now. They're currently growing, which we're super excited to be a part of. They just added player props and futures as well. So you can go bet with BetUS. Use our code PickSwap at login to go join the fun and bet with us on an Embiid MVP campaign. So when I go and when I think about this, when I think about Joel Embiid, like I think about Sunday, like how quietly did he put up 37 and
Mhm.
hurt? Like he hurt himself, rolled his ankle pretty bad. Still
Yeah.
came out, dominated, gave them a good chance at the end of the game to get back into that game, and nobody talked about it. I know it was a Sunday 6 p.m. game, so those are the kind of forgotten. But he went against the best team in the league, against a good defensive opponent in DeAndre Ayton, and
Mhm.
a good defensive team in the Phoenix Suns, and he gave them 37 like very casually, and did it in a pretty efficient way. I don't know, man. It's one of those things that it makes me upset because when you look back, like when I think about who the MVP was, you probably could have given it to KD multiple times. You probably could have given it to LeBron more than 4 times. You probably could have given it to Kobe when he was playing more than once. Like, but the NBA voters, the reason that Giannis didn't win it a couple years ago, the reason that James Harden didn't win it, for a second time, a reason Russell West, like they don't, it's voter fatigue, and which is a huge part of the MVP voting. And we've talked about how you know ambiguous the voting system is, and how there's no real caliber, there's no real way to actually understand what the MVP means.
Yeah.
But like, if you're really gonna look at this and you say Embiid had a great season last year, had he not missed 20 plus games with an injury, he would have been the MVP. You gave it to Jokic because he also had a great season. But it came down to just games played. It came down to certain things, and then you do this again where it's Nikola Jokic had a great season. He, battling through injuries with his team. His team wasn't as good, didn't perform as well this year as the Sixers team did, but Joel Embiid had an even better year than last year. Missed less games, battled a Ben Simmons saga of drama and bullshit for 6 months. Carried his team to at one point the first team or the first place spot in the Eastern Conference. How can you do that and then still give Nikola Jokic the MVP? Like if you're looking at that at a year by year basis, you look at what the resume of Jokic last year compared to Embiid last year, the difference is marginal, right? And you picked
Yeah.
Jokic because of games played. Now Embiid didn't miss as many games. You have basically the same resume, probably even a better year from Embiid, and you're going to give it to Jokic still. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. Like what point are we trying to make? What point are we trying to make here? Because I don't understand.
Yeah, it's very crazy. First off, I'd like to shout out Drew Hanlon too, who's absolutely going to
Yeah.
bat for Embiid online, and I'm all about that. He did a tweet looking at the net differential. The Nuggets with Jokic are plus 2.5, and without Jokic on the floor are plus 5.9, which is a minus 3.4 net differential. Versus Embiid, where the Sixers are plus 6.9 with him on the court and plus 0.8 with him off, which is a plus 6.1 net differential. I get the argument is very clouded with me as far as like the better supporting cast and situation, because I guess just pure talent wise, like it's absolutely the Sixers. But when you look at like how the Nuggets are built to absolutely maximize on what Jokic does as a player, the system they run is just catered to him in a way. And again, this is probably more of a criticism on the Sixers more than anything, but the Sixers just simply have not been for Embiid. It's getting closer, like, it's miles closer than it was flashback to, like, 2 years ago, but it's still not, like, full out maximizing what I believe is the best visibilities, and also, like, I get all the advanced stats, I get all the metrics, but there is something real about, like, the eye test, and, like, watching Joel Embiid play, like, he just possesses, like, a dominance and a control over a game that, like, is not replicated in the same way by Nikola Jokic, and obviously, they both dominate the game. They're both terrific players. They dominate in very different ways. But like for me, building a team and looking at who's been like the most successful this year and has elevated the roster around them more, it's absolutely Joel Embiid. Like look at what he does defensively. Look at like when the game is on the line, how much he just alters a game in terms of like his clutch time defense is ridiculous, and the block shots that he comes with up with, and the ones that he alters, which don't get like picked up on stats really, are even more impressive to me, because there's so many times where he comes over as a help defender and just like his big body and hands up just alter everything, change. And like Jokic, like the defensive struggles are pretty well documented, so I'm not going to hammer those home anymore, but it's like I think you absolutely need that out of your center to be a legitimate good team, and like that's just not how the Nuggets are built. And I mean, I get like Murray and Porter Jr. have been out, but I just don't think that makes up for it in my mind.
No, and if they're gonna hold James Harden against Joel Embiid for the 3 weeks that they've played together, the month and a half that they've played together, like I don't know, man. It doesn't make much sense to me. And yeah, Embiid obviously like defensively we talked about so much is just significantly better and different. He also didn't put another player out into the hospital for 4 months this year. So that could be something
True.
you look at too. If character is a part of this. But I don't know, man. I think it would just be a real shame if it doesn't go to Embiid this year. I think that's just a genuine shame because I think he deserved it last year.
Mm.
Um,
And I
but
think
I
this is probably like his I don't want to say his last chance because obviously he's got like who knows how much longer he plays at this level, but like this feels like the year that it's like his opportunity to win it. And like if that goes by, like I just really it would mean a lot to everyone to see this guy win this and be recognized as the best player in the NBA, which he has been. So I just think that should happen, I guess.
Yeah, no, and I think so too. And when you think about what he is to this city, and I think about Embiid's legacy as a player, and having an MVP right now, like they're trying to win a championship. He's mentioned that so many times when this conversation comes up, and he said it a million times. I'd rather win a championship than win an MVP. But this is the year that he won, that he deserves it, and two, like I think it's not necessarily the focus. Obviously, it's not the focus, but like it was his team and it was his season and it was his struggle for this whole year. And it's kind of been supplemented by the addition of James Harden, obviously. But going forward, I think this team is going to be like we've talked about how much this team is probably going to change this offseason, regardless of the result
Mm.
of the year. So going into next year, it's going to look entirely differently. It's probably, hopefully, going to be something that matches Embiid's play style, and it's going to help him out a lot more. And there's going to be massive changes. Like he's probably not going to be eligible for it just based on how good, hopefully, this team looks in a year. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
think it's going to be. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and right now, there's a lot of legacy looking type things that are going to come with this. And when his career ends, and we're looking back at that, he should or could have won an MVP in 2020, in 2021. He probably should and could definitely should win the MVP in 2021, 2022. So it would be a shame for him to have gone through all of this, everything that's happened during his career, and not get out on the other side without an MVP. But I'm still holding hope. I still do genuinely think he's going to win it. I think he deserves it. And I know a lot of players are vouching for him right now. So
Yeah.
what I'm curious to see, what I'm really excited to hear, is JJ Redick posted on his Twitter at the Sixers facility yesterday, and it kind of put Twitter in a little bit of a spiral. A lot of people kind of guessing or assuming, or maybe hopefully thinking that he was signing with the Sixers for the playoffs, which we've seen like Ray Allen do at times. Unfortunately, it's not that. We were kind of all hoping maybe they would cut DeAndre Jordan and add JJ Redick. Wishful thinking for sure. But he recorded an episode of his podcast with Joel Embiid, who's kind of doing a little media run here
Yeah.
with his appearance in the Draymond Green show, and now again with JJ Redick. So I'm super excited. I loved the Draymond Green episode, and they recorded live like with each other in Philadelphia. So I'm really excited to hear that as well. So what did you think about that?
Yeah, it definitely has been a little bit of the Embiid media run, which is cool to see.
Yeah,
He had a cool piece with Sam Amick, who sat down and
yeah,
interviewed him with the Athletic as well. It's cool, like similar. Never mind. I don't want to. I was about to do a Tom Brady comparison, but that's a little disrespectful to Embiid, I feel. But in a similar fashion to how I felt it was when he kind of got out of New England and showed his like personality. Like that's kind of how I feel about Joel in the aspect of like Philadelphia
yeah,
knows how like cool this guy is and like who this guy is as a person, and for that to like
yeah.
kind of be shown to the national level, I think is very cool and awesome. And like I think it's helpful to him to show his personality because there's been a kind of a in his trajectory. Like he obviously came in the league as the guy ready to talk shit with anyone, was mixing it up online on Twitter with everyone,
Yeah.
and then that is very much kind of like gone down, and he's been like a quieter Joel, a more mature Joel. So to kind of get him back out there is very cool. I obviously would have been on board with the Redick for the playoffs. He was probably Embiid's best two-man partner of all time. That still stands up today. The pick and roll dribble handoff the dribble handoff specifically that they ran was pretty much unmatched with anything that's been in the Sixers offense and never really been fully I guess nobody else has stepped up in that role since. We've tried with even Seth Curry couldn't do it to the same extent, and it all because of like just how efficient and at what a high rate Redick could complete that. So I loved his time here. Him and Embiid totally got along. Would have been nice if that was the move. I think I was pretty. I knew it was very unlikely that that's what was happening. I figured it was some sort of media thing, but I definitely wishful thinking would love for Redick to be a Sixer again.
Yeah, man, I would have loved it too. He's mentioned multiple times that this was like one of, if not the best times of his career in Philadelphia. And like we said, he was really close with Joel. I do listen to the Old Man and the Three. JJ Redick actually is the reason that I'm even doing this at all. The JJ Redick podcast when he was with the Ringer. Um, Inspired me in high school to start a podcast, and to this day. So I've always loved him as a podcaster, as an interviewer, and I've enjoyed his time, in the media, and I think he's really good for like ESPN and the education of young basketball fans. I think he's really good for that kind of movement that we're seeing, and Draymond Green as well is going to be moving into that space at some point. But when I think about this, I'm super excited to hear, and I like to watch the interviews as well. Embiid being able to be candid, I think with a guy like JJ Redick, he's going to be very open and honest about the situation. And a guy that's very close to the situation, like JJ, who knows, is really close with Doc, obviously, knows Doc very well from his time in Los Angeles, but also was there, throughout the Simmons stuff. I'm interested to see and hear what that conversation is going to be like, talking about that situation, considering they both played with him. And JJ knows as much about the situation as anyone else that's interviewed him, probably more, definitely more. So that'll be interesting and exciting, and it's gonna be good to hear Joel speak his mind as he does, and hopefully it'll be like because the audio and everything kind of I feel like the Zoom thing that he did with Draymond Green was good, but when they try to talk with each other, it gets overlapped, things like that. So I'm excited to hear it kind of in person as well. So yeah, that'll come out. I think they said Thursday. JJ
Mhm.
Redick tweeted today it's going to come out on Thursday, so that'll be something to look out for later this week. You want to talk about the Bucks game tonight because there's a lot. There's a lot of weight in this game. I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. This is a big one for as far as a measuring stick Eastern Conference game. Personally, I'm not as optimistic on it as the Sixer side as I feel like I am most games. The Sixers last time they played the Bucks, which was right after the Harden trade, but before he played, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was the game before the All Star break.
Mhm.
George Niang locking up Giannis, just casually as expected. I don't know if that's exactly how it's going to go today. I think the Bucks are peaking at the right time. They're a scary team, to be honest, and we obviously the defending champs. They're getting back to their identity and playing as a team. They've had a couple impressive wins lately. Sixers are favored by 1.5. That scares me a little bit. Also, it's nice that it's home. I also don't think it's the worst thing in the world if they lose this game. Like when we're looking to the standings, which it's just so tight in the East right now. The Heat back on top of the first spot. The Sixers and Bucks both again, or Sixers, Bucks, and Celtics, but all tied for a game behind. The Celtics have played 2 less games than the Sixers and Bucks, but Sixers and Bucks hold the exact same record. So just a lot in the mix between those three, and it's swapped all over the place. Like Sixers were first a couple days ago. It pretty much by the night changes. I don't mind slipping to the 3 or 4 seed by any means. Looking at how the playoffs match up, and the bottom is very convoluted as well. So there's going to be a lot of like seedings to watch as it comes out. As far as eyeing like matchups, which is beyond that, like obviously the Nets are pretty likely to come out of the playing game somehow, still or second title favorites behind the Suns, despite maybe not even making it to the true playoffs. We don't even know, but that's going to be a handful for whoever ends up in 1 or 2, especially given that Kyrie can now play in every home game. So it is what it is. Bottom line, though, Sixers got to worry about tonight with the Bucks. They're a tough team. I don't really know I think there has to be a new game plan as far as matching up wise. Like once again, I don't think George Niang is the answer to guard Giannis on a consistent basis, which was the case in that game. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm excited for this game. I am excited for this game. It's a big one. Like a lot of things you said. I'm gonna echo a lot of it. Is like this is it's a fun part of the season though. The Celtics got all the way back up to the 1 seed. They
Yeah.
lose one game, they drop back down to the 4. The Heat were up, they lose what 3 or 4 in a row. They go from 1 to 4 and then back up to 1. And the Bucks have been kind of up and down. They got Brooke Lopez back now. So that's another thing about tonight that we haven't seen from them this season. This is going to be huge in the tiebreaker. This is their third game, yeah, against each other this year. They've split so far. So this is going to be big in that aspect as well when it's coming down to seeding. Personally, I'm not that concerned over the seed. If at all possible, you'd like to avoid Brooklyn in the first round just based off of, you know, that essentially completely takes away any advantage that you had as a a top seed. You've had to play the Brooklyn Nets with KD and Kyrie as full time. Still no Ben Simmons, so no update there. It would be funny though if the Nets have to play in Toronto
Yeah, I'm
during the
rooting for it.
playing game. That would just be so poetic,
I'm rooting for it
for
for sure.
the New York City mandate to be lifted and then him still not be able to play, go to the only city that he can't play in the entire league. That would just be very funny to me. And it's possible, but when you're looking at these seeds, you got to just play who's in front of you. We haggled and talked and wished for the number one seed last year so we could get the right path to the playoffs, and it didn't matter. And at the end of the day, you got to play who's in front of you. Obviously, you'd rather have a lesser opponent in the first and second round, and save yourself for the Eastern Conference Finals. But at this point, I don't think that it should matter. You got to just take it one game at a time. And I've kind of given up on as you try to break this down to a science of who's going to end up where and what the seeding will look like and who potentially the Sixers will play in the second round of the play. Like I don't want to do that this year because we saw what happened last year.
Yeah,
And I just don't want to. I don't want to like. I think everyone, the Sixers included, were looking to
pass.
that Eastern Conference Finals matchup, and they forgot that they were about to get their ass beat by a lower seed and a team that's not even going to make the or is in the bottom tier of the East this year, in the Atlanta Hawks. So I don't know, man. I'm kind of obviously this is a big game. They could win it. Like you said, it's not the end of the world if they lose it because I don't think getting the third or fourth seed is that big of a deal considering you might play the Bulls who I'm not afraid of or the Cavs who I'm not afraid of or the Raptors who I'm not afraid like being in that middle bunch. I don't think is as big of a deal as it was last year, considering like the way that the East is shaken up to this point.
Yeah, the Bulls and Cavs are the two teams I would prefer to play if I got to pick. But
They'd beat their ass. Genuinely, I do think that they would beat both those teams' asses.
yeah, but they're probably the only two that I feel that confident about saying that in a
Yeah.
7 game series right now, which isn't great. Even the Raptors definitely scare me. Uh,
Yeah.
and as far as the Nets, real quick, I genuinely believe the Nets would be better off just shutting Ben Simmons down for the season. Like they're obviously doing their thing, starting to click now that Kyrie can play full time. To expect a guy who is probably one of the most niche basketball players in terms of scheme, what he can do, to just throw him in and expect it to work seamlessly is bananas to me. So I get like trying to get him back as soon as possible, getting him to help. I think right now the most likely like timeline is he comes back just for the playoffs, and to me that's just a crazy thing to do because I think they're very much underestimating how like specific schemes have to be for him to be successful and like how limited things are. And obviously different situation in Brooklyn than it is in Philly, but I think they're taking for granted how hard it is to make an offense fit around Ben Simmons.
Yeah. I kind of forget about him. I do. I forget that he exists a lot, which is nice.
That is.
After him, like constantly just being talked about for like 7 months, 8 months. But it's also like underrated the fact that if he comes back right for the playoffs, you got to think about it. He hasn't played in a year. He hasn't played basketball for a year. Like any real capacity. Like he hasn't been really practicing that whole time. He hasn't played 5-on-5. Source of him, from his own mouth is that I haven't played 5-on-5 basketball since I played the Atlanta Hawks. That's insanity.
Yeah.
And for him to come out, everyone else has been playing this whole time, and not he does things that I think don't take a lot of like adjustment in terms defensively. What he does defensively, it doesn't. I don't think it takes a lot of time to get back in that defensive rhythm. But offensively, I don't know, man. Yeah, it might be better for them to just say like, work on it. Let's figure it out and come back next year. Also, like, when the hell did he get hurt? When the hell was he actually injured? He hasn't been playing, but and enough about him because I don't think it's not going to concern me until it's a concern. You know what I mean? Until it's
Yeah.
actually relevant to this team. I like when I'm looking at the playoffs and the way it's going to work out. I'm happy at where they are. I think that they've had an up and down, like a roller coaster of a season. Obviously, it went from like, things are going to change to Embiid playing so well, and then they've had this little up and down couple of stretches from here and there, and it feels like they're in a little bit of that lull right now, where the games, you're kind of set in stone where you're going to be. The top four seeds are going to be the top four seeds. Everyone else is kind of battling around. I mean, the Sixers could, they could end up as a one seed, they could end up as the four, and I think at this point, however it works out is the way it's going to be, and I think they just have to, take this a day at a time, work on themselves, figure out themselves first, and not concern themselves with the outside. Is the way I am looking at it as a fan, and I hope that's the way that they're looking at it as a team as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Control what you can control, play who's in front of you. The focus right now should be way more focused on how the Sixers actually look and how things are clicking offensively, how the chemistry is growing than any results at this point in the season, as weird as that is to say. But I don't
Yeah.
know. Under 10 games left. The seeding's still a lot to be decided, a lot to watch out for still. But as far as the Sixers specifically, one game at a time, keep building.
Yeah, so we can. What's your final prediction for tonight? That's my final question for you.
Bucks win. Unfortunately, I think Bucks win. If you want to score, I'm going 121 to 117. I think it'll be
Ooh,
close.
so high scoring, close game. I'm gonna go with the Sixers. Sixers bring out a W. Also, I want to point out, by the way, the Sixers are better on the road this year than they are at home.
Yeah,
So like the seating again doesn't matter that much for that reason as well. They are
I
gonna
do
do.
think I do think that's a little their biggest homestand was when everybody had COVID. So I think that number's a little
True.
distorted in that, but it is another interesting. I mean, we've seen such bizarre home road splits with the Sixers team
Yeah.
over the past couple of years that it's just crazy.
Yeah, they've gone from like completely unbeatable at home and can't even fathom a win on the road to vice versa. They've
Yeah.
gone kind of an opposite direction this year. But I'm gonna go with the Sixers win tonight. 112-108. Sixers win at home. I don't know. I'm just optimistic, I guess, but we'll see. If you want to join us in betting on that game, definitely go check out BetUS. Use our code PickSwap at login. Get your first bet risk free up to $500. You can follow Sean on his Twitter at Sean_Bernard1. You can follow me at JSPrain17. Follow the pod on Twitter at PickSwap Pod. Check out the YouTube. We've been throwing everything up on there. It's been great. We're closing in on 200 subscribers. So let's get that number up. We want to get to 500 here soon. We're working on it. And I mean, I don't have anything. You have anything else?
Yeah, no, trust the process.
All right.
Joel Embiid, MVP.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go bet on it. Go bet on Joel to be the MVP because we've already done it. We've already spent our money. So we'll talk to you guys after this game and again on Thursday.